Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, back again with Doctor Who Classic. Well, in some capacity. Last time we watched anything classic Doctor Who related, we had the movie. You remember that?
Yes, vaguely. Actually, not too bad. I mean, the transitioning from one Doctor to the other.
Yeah. It was interesting. We picked up with the 8th Doctor in his only on-screen appearance. But, yeah, it was alright, I'd say. And this has nothing to do with that. So, this is the first Peter Cushing film. One of the two films that are basically spun off of the first Doctor. I believe this is from 1965. So, not too long after the show started. And it's basically, you remember the Daleks serial we watched, right?
Yes.
With the first Doctor. This is a incredibly loose adaptation of that. So, Cushing is somewhat playing the first Doctor, although I believe he's just referenced to as Doctor Who, not just the Doctor. And it should still have Ian, Barbara, and Susan in some capacity.
So. Now, that's very odd because I was still living in England in 65. We came back in 66, and I do not remember these films at all.
That's interesting, because apparently, from what I've been told, the reason that these films were made was because of Dalek mania that was happening in England. So everyone was just so obsessed with the Daleks after that first 7-part serial that...
I will tell you this, the little town that we were living in 65, 66 was a town called Mildenhall, and they'd had a local cinema there. But I'll be honest with you, the only film I ever remember seeing there at that particular movie house was the Beatles' Hard Day's Night. We had a movie theater on the Air Force Base at RAF Lakenheath, and most of the time we went there, but I do remember specifically seeing Hard Day's Night because Beatlemania was in its infancy at that point too.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe the Air Force didn't care about sci-fi movies.
Well, they showed a lot of really, really bad stuff. I mean, again, my dad was in the Air Force pretty much from the time I was born. I remember seeing films like The Blob, and, It Came from Outer Space, and all the rest of those real cheesy 50s and early 60s things. So, I don't know how I missed the Doctor Who movies, but apparently I did.
Well, those were American, weren't they? Those were American films? Maybe.
Yes, but again, they were played at the Air Force Base movie theater. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I am trying to figure out, because if this was such a big thing, but I mean, it's big enough that this movie did get a sequel. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And again, regarding British films, I remember seeing Dr. No and From Russia with Love, the first two, if I recall correctly, the first two James Bond films. Can't remember if Goldfinger came out while we were still there. But again, if it did, I would have seen it at the Air Force. Yeah. The only film I remember seeing in a British cinema was Hard Day's Night, which was great. I mean, if you've never seen Hard Day's Night, it's hysterical. Plus all the music.
All right. Well, then at least you get to make up for something by watching this.
All right.
So, yeah, I have no idea if this is good, if it's weird, and it has to be weird.
Well, Peter Cushing, though, he was a wonderful actor in all these things. Christopher Lee, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, completely different. Christopher Lee, Peter Sellers, all those British actors from the early 60s, just wonderful at what they did.
I think you said in a previous reaction that, that Peter Cushing would make a good Doctor.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, he's got the bearing for it. I mean, he's just very, very interesting, very kind of cool, detached, almost mad scientist sort of thing. So he did a lot of Dracula movies. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing was usually not the Dracula character, but he was the one, like the Dr. Van Helsing. So,
all right. Now let's see. This is the first Doctor Who Classic video we're doing in a very, very long string of Doctor Who Classics. We're doing, for a while, we're going to be doing just select episodes, like from each Doctor and stuff, to build up to the 50th anniversary, which comes after Series 7 of Modern Doctor Who, which I just started today. So, I guess since this is our first one, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and make full length on this video for free. I normally do this at the beginning of every season, but since we're not having a proper season, I'm just going to do it at the beginning of this run. So if you go down in the description of this video or to the pinned comment, there should be a little link there. It'll take you over to my Patreon page where you can watch our full-length, unedited reaction. It's not going to have any of the footage from the movie. You're going to have to sync up your own copy of the movie if by some chance you have that, I guess. I may not have thought this through, but still, you can probably find it somewhere, and you can sync it up and watch us completely unedited. So, but if you don't want to do that, then you can just stick around 3 or 4 seconds. We'll get started. So, yeah, I guess we ought to get started then.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Oh, no, no, no. We don't do jazz with Doctor Who. Come on. Where's the theme?
I was going to say, something about this feels wrong. Like we turned on the beginning of Temple of Doom or something.
Yeah. I thought Barbara was a math teacher.
I don't even think she's a teacher in this.
Oh.
I think...
Oh... I love the serials, those weeklies like that. I subscribe to like 3 or 4 of them.
I am so very glad to meet you at last.
Hi. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, extremely kind of you. Most thoughtful. Thank you.
They're for Barbara. They're soft centers, her favourite kind.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, yes. Oh,
Now, this is very odd. That's a wig. He's not that old.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, well, let's give Harold a chance.
Ian?
Yes, my name's Ian, Doctor Who.
Oh, Harold, how do you do? Yes, best. Come along, then. Come along. Thank you, sweetie. Off we go.
Playing him like Alistair Sim. See, this is not at all what I expected. I expected a Peter Cushing,
Yeah.
you know, very suave, very debonair.
My latest invention.
What, a police box?
Of course not.
This is TARDIS.
TARDIS?
It stands for Time and Relative Dimension in Space.
Oh.
So dimensions plural.
Yeah?
So he just keeps it in his backyard. It's not like in a laboratory or something, or in the junkyard where he can put it together. It's just
Yeah, it's just at his house.
Hello, darling.
no TARDIS sounds.
I mean,
Young man.
it's only 2 years later. They don't have the continuity.
Transferred us in time and space, and I hadn't even set the control.
Well,
See where we are.
they are getting right into it, at least. But like, of all the reasons that you stumble back in time, you know, I don't know, you could add the Libyans or something.
I suspect this wasn't very popular with the hardcore Doctor Who fans because it's the wrong tone.
Yeah. And it also didn't help that we don't really know their characters yet.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting into it so quickly. And the only one we can infer anything off of from the show is the Doctor, but even he's just too different.
Yeah. He's kind of like a John Pertwee, but they hadn't gotten to Pertwee yet, had they?
No, not in 65.
Yeah.
I don't even think they got to Troughton yet.
What have you found this time?
Look!
Oh,
So how is Susan related to Barbara? If or you know, are they? I mean, didn't Barbara call him grandfather?
Yeah, they're both his granddaughters, so
They're like 30 years apart.
they must be sisters.
Let's investigate.
Oh, yes, let's!
This is actually addressing something I just talked about in the last video I recorded. If the Doctor took a child companion. Like, he never does that, so
Yeah.
it's slightly interesting.
Not a thing.
The scanner's in black and white.
Well, something must have made that noise, and I don't want to find out what it is.
I mean, you gotta cut corners
Have you set
somewhere.
the controls for home?
I mean, that's the thing, is he's a human that made the TARDIS.
Supposing there isn't any mercury on his planet.
We'll just have to try the city. It's about the only place we're likely to find any.
So they are keeping that plot point.
This is totally unnecessary.
Comedy.
Well, let's get out of here.
Blue Daleks. Ooh.
If we had it, we could leave the city, destroy all others, and have the planet for ourselves.
The ash-covered planet?
Yeah.
Our prisoners say.
It is such an odd choice to de-age her that much. Like, you could have kept her around the same age. Because now this seems even more dangerous than in the original show.
Yeah. It's a heck of a set.
Yeah. At least we can more clearly see how she's running through.
Cosmic tie-dye.
I mean, he does look more alien.
Who are you? What do you want?
And this
Lava lamps.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
You still have yours?
No, that thing broke a long time ago.
be friends. When the fowls come to collect the food, we will destroy them.
No, you will exterminate them. Come on.
Maybe they gotta build up to it.
Why not exterminate them?
There you go.
They have
Then the souls are doomed.
Meanwhile, on Endor.
moved back from the door.
I brought you a pizza.
Take the food.
All ready, Barbara.
Ugh. What were they feeding him?
Well, it's probably pudding, but it's meant to be some kind of, nutrient-dense goo.
Space pudding.
He's coming.
Doors closed.
Dalek!
Yes.
He was at least a little polite about it.
Get over there.
Gotta get the squid. Good job, bud.
Now you get inside. Show us the way the Daleks took you when you went back to TARDIS.
All right. Turn left to
It really bugs me that they don't say the TARDIS. It just seems wrong.
Yeah.
It's the same shot of the squid. Or the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
It is nice that some of them have something different than the plunger.
Yeah.
Although from what I've seen, the plunger should work for everything.
The music is entirely wrong.
Yeah.
So that's what you'd expect from a medieval sort of pageant film of the 50s and 60s. So they live in the jungle, but they have the ability to make tailored clothing.
Are they just not going to use the lasers? Is that just not a thing we're doing today?
Apparently not, just fire extinguishers.
I guess.
Well, again, now that set's very impressive.
Yeah.
You are different from them. And they are afraid of anything different. And what people are afraid of, they try to destroy.
The message still resonating 50 years later.
Peaceful people.
Goodbye.
So that was the
And
climax?
Good luck.
Maybe.
'Cause at least last time they had the push the Dalek over fight.
Fluidly.
Oh, the Daleks still have it.
We'll just get it back. They could find a way of getting out of the city. They have weapons, you have none.
We will not fight.
I do remember that was a big thing in the serial, that they kind of like looked down on them for not fighting.
Take her to the Daleks.
You can't. Oh. I thought you were our friends.
You see, you will fight for something.
I feel kind of bad for Ian. He has to fall down like that and stuff.
He does hit the ground somewhat like a meatloaf. So, if the planet is just a gigantic mutated swampland, why did the Daleks want it in the first place?
It'll be too dangerous for all.
It may be a
Yeah.
crummy piece of land, but it's our crummy piece of land. I mean,
I guess. But they don't have...
We'll try to find a way
At this point, they wouldn't have space or time capabilities.
Hey!
this is a really flimsy premise.
Yeah.
We'll never get through.
We must try.
The swamp's full of mutations.
You keep your fears to yourself. I don't want you upsetting the others. Right? Come on.
You know, I was thinking a little while ago, I was like, man, this is somewhat nice because they're cutting out some of the filler, like going through the forest to get to the city, but they got me. They got me with their classic forests.
If we could find that
Out
way,
to the water bags. We'll need them. I'll catch you up.
Right, come on.
Well, he's dead.
Might as well be wearing a red shirt.
Yeah.
I want to go back.
We must get to the city.
They could have scanners here, anything. I'm going back.
What have you been doing?
Now there can be no question of going back.
Good talk.
No, Antodus, no! Hey! Get me out of here!
He's all right.
Well, they did get him out of there. Then what was the point of cutting the rope? You could have just climbed it anyway.
You are trapped!
That worked a little too well. And these Daleks are not good.
happened?
Like, they're even more incompetent than in the show.
All set for home. Let's say goodbye to our friends. Oh, hello.
It's amazing how her hair stays in place through all of that.
Well, it's amazing her hair never caught fire.
You'll look pretty funny wearing that in London.
Hey.
Well, do something.
Wow. Well, that happened.
Wow.
I mean, now here's at least the good news, which I only realized at the end, is that next week we're actually watching the third serial from the first Doctor. So that is a refresher on where we left off.
Uh-huh. Well,
To
I
an
thought
extent.
the good news is we'll never have to watch that again. That's not just bad. I mean, it's ludicrously bad because it's a literally shot for shot remake, but it captures none of the spirit of the original. And if that did well in England, I don't know what that says for the public. That's just it's bad. I mean, it's horrible. The other film that we watched that everybody panned because the two doctors and the whole, this is much worse. That's just garbage. That's just a waste of celluloid.
Yeah. I mean, there is a sequel.
I mean, I guess we'll have to watch that, but wow, seriously, waste of time.
The good news is we don't have to watch that anytime soon, because that is based off of another Dalek story from the first Doctor, maybe 2 or 3 seasons ahead of where we are, and it's going to be a little while before we get there. So we get a break from that, but
there's literally nothing redeemable in that. I mean, Peter Cushing, I'm assuming that's the way he was directed, but it's not Doctor Who.
No.
If it was made before even Patrick Troughton, it's so far beyond what Hartnell ever did.
Yeah.
That it literally doesn't sink. It's seriously it's like a cheap remake where you sometimes see like a big American film or a big British film or something where in Peru or Ecuador or Venezuela or some other country where they try to take the story and remake it. They did that many years ago. There was a Mexican remake of the film Alive, which is about the Andes plane crash. Just horrible film.
Yeah.
But again, they were ripping off the entire theme, and it's just that's what this is a ripoff. It's like a cheesy remake, and I don't understand what the purpose behind it was.
I mean, it's definitely like a way to cash in on how big Doctor Who was at the time, but to just completely remake the second serial, which, let's all be honest, is not a very exciting serial to begin with.
Yeah.
And then, because that's the thing, this is an hour and 20 minutes long. The serial that we watched was 7 parts, and you remember that was a long day when we had to film all 7 of those. This still felt as long, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
And we didn't have breaks. I remember that day. This was about a year ago now that we did that one. But we stopped. I was able to stand up and start the camera over. I remember we stopped in the middle to go eat lunch. But this was just a straight through, and just for an hour and 20 minutes of just like nothing.
Yeah. I mean, the music, not just the incidental music. How do you do a Doctor Who without somewhere introducing the theme? It's like when they just most recently remade the Star Trek films. The director even said, we have a new theme and everything, but when they finally come together at the end of that film, they introduce that original Star Trek theme.
Yeah.
There's nothing here like that. Now, I understand this is 1965, but still,
yeah,
how do you do Doctor Who without the Doctor Who theme?
It's so tricky because, because this is only, if this is 1965, this is only 2 years after the first two serials were released. So only 2 years. I highly doubt they had gone on to Troughton yet. And so they were just given, okay, here's this little quirky show with some sci-fi. Everyone loves these Daleks, so just remake that. It's like, I guess they must have just thought they didn't need to keep that much continuity. And I don't know, because something like this, remaking episodes of a TV show into a movie, I mean, it's not done now, it's not done ever, so this must have been just an interesting sort of project to take on.
Yeah, but I mean, why would you stray that far afield? I mean, if you're trying to pull in new people, there's got to be something better than that particular series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do the Daleks, do it a completely new story. Don't remake the same story. Because, I mean, seriously, William Hartnell would have still been fresh in their memories if they were still watching him every week on TV. And to see Peter Cushing, which I'm now beginning to see maybe they based the John Pertwee version of Doctor Who after him, because the pompadour hair and the velour suit and the little
maybe the design.
Yeah.
I
But even Pertwee's character was better than this.
Yeah.
I talk about absolutely disappointed in Peter Cushing's performance. I mean, leading up to this, I'm thinking, with everything that we know about him, he would be a wonderful Doctor Who. But he wasn't trying to be William Hartnell.
Yeah.
And what he did made no sense. I mean, there's too many attempts at humor that fall flat.
Yeah.
There's nothing to distinguish it as being better. I mean, sure, it's in color, but other than that, other than having red, blue, and black Daleks, there's no point in remaking it. I mean,
right.
If it was an attempt to bring more people to get to watch the Doctor Who show on TV, I would have to suggest that this was a miserable failure.
Yeah, because even we keep bringing up this is 1965, so maybe at this point in the show, the character of the Doctor has not become this sort of, this larger-than-life character we all know now. Because even back when we were watching the serials, we pointed out that the Doctor is not the main character, and Ian is actually the leading man here, and the Doctor's just sort of this mysterious figure that's there with them. So when you don't have everything that the Doctor is built around, even just up to Troughton, because Troughton becomes more of the leading man with the Doctor. So when you take that, you're really just left with, well, what was Hartnell's performance, and then how do you try to make that performance your own? And it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to use an adjective I very rarely use. This was execrable. Look it up.
It's
pointless.
Yeah, and the thing too is, like, I want to know who made this, because when the film started, I was looking through the credits. I was like, there's got to be someone here that I recognize, because the only thing I recognized was based on the TV show by Terry Nation. It's like, but that seems to be it. I'm wondering how much of their input was in this film, because honestly, I was kind of thinking watching this, like, all right, this is 1965. Probably the cast is still there. Why not just use the cast you had?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, because, like, it just doesn't seem... It seems weird. It's like you go out of your way to get a brand new cast. You get Peter Cushing. You get this... The new guy, Ian and Barbara... They could have probably just passed as Ian and Barbara in the show, honestly.
Yeah.
If you just, change their writing and stuff. And then you go out of your way to change Susan to be a 12-year-old. It's like, why not just stick with the cast? This is it's only 2 years later, so were any of the cast, did they leave already? Was Hartnell already, showing signs of illness or anything? Like, I don't see the point in completely recasting it. But then, why remake this serial?
Yeah.
Just make a brand new Doctor Who movie.
Exactly.
Keep the Daleks. Keep your cast. You already watched the cast. You already watched that cast on TV. So wouldn't that just be this great big thing? Hey, we're doing it in a movie. It's set. Who cares after that episode? Or do it like between seasons if that's a thing or something. So...
Yeah, it's just there are just so many things wrong.
Yeah,
from the not just the execution, but from the planning stage. Like you just said, what is the point if you're going to go completely away from the original cast? Then you need to give a brand new story, because to do the same story with a different cast makes no sense.
Yes, and also the fact that it's not just that it's a new cast, but they are all still playing different variations on these characters. Despite the fact that, I was told that this was a loose remake. It was loosely based on the Daleks serial. This is almost beat for beat an exact remake of that original serial, just maybe, I don't know, maybe an hour shorter than, the 7-part serial we had. But it still hit every beat, right down to, you know, when they jumped over that chasm and stuff. Like, I remember that episode. They jumped over the chasm. The one guy couldn't make it. I don't remember him cutting himself loose, but then they still got him anyway. I thought that was weird, but every last part of it is still the exact same plot, just with different characters. Because that's the thing. This is not the Doctor. This is Doctor Who. That's just his name, apparently. This is 12-year-old Susan and her older, as you said, 30-year-old sister, Barbara. And this is Ian the bumbling idiot.
But see, that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed the original Doctor Who, is that Barbara and Ian were teachers. You know, they had skills, knowing math and science and history and that sort of thing, kind of helped them to get through this. But just throw a couple of, you know, numbnuts in there, and it makes no sense.
Well, and also too, because they completely disregarded the dynamic that the group had, which was, because especially, you know, in the Dalek serial, they were just coming off of all the caveman stuff, and the Doctor was like, well, I can't take you home. You know, you've seen all this. I can't just let you leave. So they are angry with him. You know, there was that one point where they were just like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if something bad happened to the Doctor? That'd be nice. So there's this somewhat animosity between them, and this is even played up further when the Doctor tricks them so that they can go to the city, which, again, is kept in here, but it's just sort of a, oh, well, I tricked you because I wanted to go see the city, and it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And it's like, no, there was always, like from the beginning, when he's like, oh, well, this piece is missing, he kind of goes more towards the camera, and Ian's like, piece is broken, huh? It's like, yes, we'll have to go to the city. None of that is present. It's just, it's so weird.
Like a copy of a copy of a copy. It just, you know, it gets fuzzier and fuzzier every time you do it. It's just, again, a complete waste of time. Not only for us, but for anybody who might have seen it in the theaters back in the 60s. Oh, just, I don't get it. Yeah. Well, skip this one in the future. If anybody says, hey, you know, you ought to watch Peter Cushing, take our advice. Do not do it.
It does make me very curious for the next one, though, because the next one, I believe, is called The Dalek Invasion of Earth. So that has to be more interesting, because that's the problem, is you took the most boring Dalek serial and you made this. Which, I don't know, maybe at the time that was the only Dalek serial, but...
But again, they could have, I mean, if you've got the great villain, you make a new story out of him, you know?
Yeah.
But just trying to remake the original one did not work, does not work.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have even been thought. Nobody should have said, you know, hey, I've got a great idea. Let's remake a boring serial.
Yeah, like... It's just
I noticed you didn't take a whole lot of notes.
No, I didn't.
There's no point in it.
I was really struggling through this. I was actually thinking, like, I think I still have my original notes from the other serial. I was like, oh, maybe I could just go through those and see if I find anything better.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, because it's like, I can't take notes on the plot too much because it's just exactly the same, just with completely uninteresting characters. Yeah. So, I tried, and we can try to go over these as best we can. So I wrote down, okay, despite how slow this film was, that intro was really fast, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, they got off of Earth as fast as possible, because that is something this movie has to do slightly differently, is they have to introduce all these characters, stumble into the TARDIS, stumble back in time, but instead of going to the cavemen first, they go straight to the Daleks, which does sort of take away, even though, yeah, the caveman story was boring too, and we didn't really care for that. It does take away just the introduction to them. It sets up the animosity between Ian and Barbara and the Doctor. So that's all lost.
What I was going to say, though, the thing about the cavemen, although it wasn't the greatest script, it at least introduced you to something that people were familiar with. You know, everybody has the idea of cavemen here on Earth and yada, yada, yada. But to immediately go to a distant planet with, you know, squid-like creatures inside of the Daleks is like, what? Why?
Yeah.
again, it makes no sense. There's no, like you said, no continuity. There's no thread. There's no genesis of an idea, no germ of an idea. It just, here we are in the middle of this plot, and seriously, who cares?
Well, and that's the other thing, too, with how fast the intro was. You know, Ian comes in, well, Ian stumbles in because he has to be all slapsticky. And immediately, like, well, Barbara's upstairs, and Doctor Who is like, oh, do you want to come see my nice invention I have in the backyard? And it's like, okay, go in, the TARDIS, Barbara comes in, all right, let's go. Like, we just got here. Like, at least give us a moment to, like, look around this horrible TARDIS set, but still.
Yeah, the interior of the TARDIS in the film was worse, in my opinion, than the TARDIS in the TV series. You know,
it was cluttered.
Too cluttered, too many things. And it didn't have, I mean, the joystick looked like it's straight out of an airplane from that time period.
Right.
That you used it. No, I mean, no.
Yeah,
no,
it's like, it's very easy to understand just the control panel in the middle in the original TARDIS. Like, that's just completely gone for, well, there's a bunch of wires, most of which are in front of the camera, which is annoying. It's like, here's some weird joystick button thing, and he's got a screen or two so he can scan things.
This is like a high school film student's remake of a Doctor Who serial.
Oh boy. So yeah. So Susan and Barbara are his family. They're both his granddaughters.
Oh, seriously, how? I mean,
I guess.
I mean, if we assume that Susan is in her 20s, which she looks at best would be in her late 20s, how do you explain a 14, 15-year gap between their ages? That doesn't make any sense.
Where are their parents? What? Like, I mean, you can at least, they at least rationalize, like, they explain in the show that it's like, okay, well, they, you know, the Doctor and Susan, you know, they explain, like, well, we're aliens, we're far away from our home, so you have to just go with that. But because they make the Doctor human in this, it's just, it's weird. It's just, they're just hanging out with him for some reason.
Yeah. Like you said, if you followed the serial, the TV show, this movie would make no sense.
Yeah.
And if you had never seen the serial, this movie would make no sense.
Right.
And that's its most basic flaw, is that it, as a movie, as a standalone movie, it does not develop either the plot or the characters well enough for you to care.
Yeah, because the entire point of making both of them his granddaughters was just to start. Because we have to go now, immediately. We can't take the time to show Susan at school, you know, getting distracted by stuff, and then Ian and Barbara as teachers being concerned, finding the Doctor, stumbling into the TARDIS, then we get the plot going. We could not do that. And that is a bit of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, that sucks that we can't get all of that. On the other hand, I'm glad it's like that, because this movie doesn't need to be any longer than it is.
And again, you don't notice it as much in the series, you know, that Doctor Who wears a frock coat, which is really kind of out of period. Let's face it. I mean, nobody wore frock coats in the 60s.
Yeah.
But to suddenly see this guy in the velvet suit and the little frou-frou tie and the bouffant hair and everything, it's like, why? You know?
Yeah.
He's living in a kind of Victorian-style house. I mean, it's obviously not modern apartment or anything, but he's too out of sync with the surroundings in his own home, and certainly out of sync when he gets into the TARDIS, because here's a guy that looks like maybe a Shakespearean actor or you know, flamboyant librarian, and suddenly you go out in his backyard and he's got a call box that is a time machine.
Yeah,
it's
there's
no
reason, like, he doesn't explain why it's a police box and why it's bigger on the inside. Like, you can accept that Doc Brown made a time machine in a DeLorean. He likes a DeLorean. He thought it was cool, so he put a time machine in there.
If you're going to make a time machine, why not do it with some class?
Which maybe is the reason he does it here, but they don't even mention, like, you know, because at least in the show, they go back in time and they're like, it's still a police box. It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to change its shape once we arrive. No explanation for that. It's like, oh, we're in a forest now. Let's go deal with that. So, let's see. We talked about... Okay, I wrote down loose plot. This is loosely based on the original serial, except that they just took the same scenes and put them in here, which is just... It's just odd. Like, of all the things to keep to a T, it's the plot. The very slow 7-episode plot they had. Which apparently, I think I remember someone saying, like, the only reason for that was because they weren't ready for the next, like, plot, so they just extended the Dalek one to 7 parts. That's why it's, like, one of the only ones that's 7 parts long, because they weren't ready for the next episode, so they just put in a bunch of filler. Then whoever wrote this just took that and was like, well, everyone just wants the plot. So they just completely wrote in the same plot, just without any of the characters. And speaking of the characters, I feel of all of them, Ian is the worst off in this one. Like, his character has changed just way too much.
Well, in the original, Barbara was kind of a self-sufficient woman. I mean, being a teacher and all that. But in this one, she's again, bouffant-haired damsel in distress.
Yeah.
I mean, it just the change in Ian and Barbara is just it's unbearable. I mean, it's unforgivable for what they did.
And I guess the only change with Susan is that she's just younger. Other than that, I mean, she still has to do the exact same stuff.
Yeah.
And the Doctor, I mean, that's the thing, is he still does exactly the same stuff that the Doctor does in the show, because the plot is exactly the same. It's just, he's not given any character to work with.
Yeah. There's none of the, crotchety old man. There's, none of the old grouch or anything, and back and forth with Ian. It's so incredibly bland. It's like the oatmeal of Doctor Who's, which is so disappointing, because Peter Cushing could have been a brilliant Doctor Who, and just wasn't allowed to be.
It's so odd. I mean, some of my other notes, I just kind of write down. It's like the answer to some of these questions is just, it just needs to be an exact remake of the plot. I wrote down, why are the Thals still here? But again, we've discussed, they wanted to remake the entire story, but I don't know. I feel like you could have just made this the Doctor or Doctor Who and the gang escaping the Daleks, but they still brought in the Thals like halfway through the movie, I feel like, and they just lengthened the entire thing.
And again, my biggest problem with this and with the original is, if the Thals live in the jungle, which apparently they do, how do they have the capability of manufacturing that kind of clothing, the kind of shoes they wear, the box that the drugs came in, the glass vials the drugs came in, and the drugs themselves? If these are literally one step above cavemen, where's their city? Where are their manufacturing? Where are their factories? Where are all of this other stuff? And just, it's like, there's a glaring plot hole that we're just going to ignore.
And they've now had 2 attempts to fix that. And, I mean, we have the benefit of hindsight. Now we've watched, since we watched the serial, we watched Genesis of the Daleks, which really delve into the Thals and the Khaleds and their initial war, and how the Doctor actually initially found them. So maybe you could say, well, the Thals, they have holdover factories, but you just don't see that. And again, that was in a 4th Doctor serial. That's like late 70s by the time you get around to that. In both of these, which are in the mid 60s, it's not addressed. It's just, here's a bunch of people in the forest
who have the capability of making, Carnaby Street vests and pants for their men and women. It's like, no. I mean, that's the only thing that keeps resounding in my mind for this particular episode. No. Should have never been made. It's just No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep saying that, but no. Oh, hell no.
Let's see. I initially wrote down no climax, and then I crossed that out because when they initially saved the Thals from the trap with the food, and then they all get back to the TARDIS, and it's like, well, thanks for the help. And I was like, oh, was that it? And I was like, well, all right, I guess I can take that. I kind of want to have the pushing over the Daleks because it's kind of funny. And well, I got what I wished for, but it was
30 more minutes of nope.
It was not worth it. Now that we had to go back through those forests. I'm tired of these forests in these. The next episode better not have any forests. I'm so tired of Doctor Who and their forests. Oh my gosh. They brought up the exact same question of should they fight or shouldn't they fight, which I guess here they changed it a little bit to not. It's not just you should have the courage to stand up and fight, but more just help us, please. Because that was the thing in the original episode was I think Ian was really getting on to them about not fighting in the war.
Yeah, and again, that was really the whole purpose of the first serial. We had that anti-war movement in Europe and in Great Britain in the late 50s and early 60s, and it comes down to this. When you face an extermination like the Nazis or supposedly the communists, it's sometimes, although every instinct in your body says we don't want to fight, sometimes you have to. There comes a time when you just have to stand up to a force as evil as the Nazis were. And then just to make this one about, you see, you do have those instincts still left over from 10,000, 500,000 years ago, whatever, 500,000, I think he said at one point.
Yeah.
If I take your woman, you're going to fight, so let's go kill some Daleks. No.
Yeah. The only good thing about that was, Ian got punched again. That was kind of funny, but...
And yet, the Fall who got punched, notice, had a bruise on his lip.
He did.
But Ian didn't have anything.
No, he didn't. Maybe humans are stronger.
No, it's crap.
Yeah.
It's just crap. I'm sorry.
If humans were stronger, then the Daleks shouldn't have a problem with the Thals. Although, first off, they still had that whole, they're powered by the floor thing, which was stupid in the serial. It's stupid here. But then also the fact that in this version, it's like, well, they don't have their lasers. They just have these sprays that they use. Like, you're a sci-fi movie. Just use a laser. You can do that. And then I wrote down the forest because I'm tired of these forests. I don't want any more. I want it to be sci-fi. That's the thing is that, okay, in the original serial, we're on the budget of a shoestring. If we have to keep reusing forests because we just have that set, that's okay. That's fine. When you get to a marginally higher budget, at least, it has to be, maybe not a huge budget, but if you get to a higher budget movie, you have to be able to do something more than what was in the original.
Don't shoot it in the studio. Go on location. They could have found so many creepy places. Even in England, down in the south western part of the country, they got the moors down there. It's just there's all sorts of places they could have done.
Yeah.
But no, we get the crappy little set with the very obviously painted background.
And I guess that's the thing is that, this was to capitalize on Dalek mania and stuff. Everyone loved the Daleks. They wanted a Dalek movie. And so someone must have just come along and been like, oh, I have an idea. And then they just put in the least amount of effort that they possibly could for this. Keeping the plot verbatim, pretty much, with the exception of we got to rewrite a little bit at the beginning to show how they get to Skaro. And, okay, we'll change the characters a little bit to make it, so we can get everyone into the TARDIS faster. And then whoever directed this was like, and go. And it's like, well, what's my character? Go. All right. And Peter Cushing just did that. It's
sad. Very sad that someone did this.
It's pretty bad.
It's been a while since we've seen something that stinks as badly as this one does.
I'm trying to think, because... Oh, I was trying to think. I was like going through every video we've ever done together, and I was like, was there anything? I feel like there was something where we were like, you know, kind of getting angry or something, or we were upset, and it's like, and I was trying to remember what was that. And I was like, oh yeah, it was that Fifth Doctor serial we watched because we were just confused.
Yeah, was that the one with the mind control?
Yeah, and the giant snake at the end.
Yeah,
Kinda. That.
We apologize. We did not get Kinda, but even Kinda was better than this.
I was about to say, it's like, at least, first off, it was only 4 episodes, so it had to be shorter than this by a little bit. And I mean, I was trying to figure out what was going on. I just couldn't. I mean, I guess that maybe that's my problem or something, but I don't know. Because the biggest problem when we originally watched the Daleks serial was it's just too long. Like, all right, we got our characters and everything. It's just, this is 3 episodes too long. You know, this did not need to be 7 episodes. The issue here is that, okay, this must be a half hour to an hour shorter than the serial, but it's exactly the same with none of the character in it. It just is. And there is another one. But it's going to be a while before we sit down and watch that. But after that, no more. Who knows? Maybe
we're speechless.
Maybe the next one's better. Maybe they try in the next one. Maybe Peter Cushing at that point is like, maybe he watches the show and is like, okay, I think I got this. Let me take some notes. I don't know. I do know that in the next movie, they introduce a character who is actually the actor came back to play another character in modern Doctor Who. And he was a great character. Granted, he's not playing that character in the next movie, but we'll have to see. First, we're going to have to watch the actual serial it's based on, and it's going to be a little while before we get to that. Okay. So we get probably at least a year's mental break between these Cushing films. But we will be back. We will be back for those, and you guys get to watch our suffering. Anything else?
No. I think, like you said, go out and scrub my brain of any memory of this particular episode.
Go do something else. Yeah.
We're sorry. We're so very sorry.
I feel bad that this is the video that I'm putting full length up for free. Like,
cause you get what you pay for.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So, again, the only good thing to come out of this is we now remember what happened in this episode, because next week we are moving on to Season 1, Serial 3, The Edge of Destruction. We'll be back with our right actors and writers and sets, and it'll be black and white, and it'll be nice.
Good old William Hartnell.
Yeah.
The one and only.
It's going to be nice. Well, until he regenerates. But
he's my one and only. Again, I literally watched probably most of his entire run, because we left England in June of '66. So he was probably only on like 2 or 3 more months after that before Troughton came on. So I literally every Saturday afternoon, I don't remember. I seem to remember it on Sunday, but it's probably Saturday. But I used to sit down and watch it faithfully. It's just one of my favorite programs.
All right. Well, it'll be nice to get back to that next week. Yeah, that's pretty much it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, the good ones, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon, follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.